Samurai, the masters of AI. Today we talk about AI in marketing with Kim Jong Andersen and Daniel Kafer. Kim Jong Andersen is a marketing pioneer and the founder of Danish Digital Awards and a partner in the legendary agency Webro, Duckert and Partners. Daniel Kafer is a super trends expert, author, and former country head of Meta.
Thank you and welcome to Samurai, a podcast about artificial intelligence, and this time more about AI in marketing. Today we have Kim Jong Andersen with us. Thanks for coming, Kim, and perhaps you can introduce yourself.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me, Daniel. My name is Kim Jong Andersen. I'm a partner at the creative agency called Webro, Duckert and Partners in Copenhagen. And I'm also the jury chair of Danish Digital Award, which is the biggest digital award we have in the Nordics. More than 300 jury members assessing perhaps around 400 unique cases each year across 21 digital disciplines, 21 categories. And one of these categories for the past 4 years, I think, has been around the use of artificial intelligence. So even though that, especially in the past year, AI has been tremendously hyped and talked about, then in the context of the Digital Awards, it's not exactly new. We've been seeing a lot of interesting cases for the past years, but of course, especially this year, it's the most recent wave of AI that is brought into play in the shape of different generative AI applications.
So, talking about the last few years, is it especially within the creative you're seeing the impact, like using tools like Midjourney or other tools, or do you see it in other areas?
I think we are seeing right now that AI and the different applications are being used across the board. Basically, it's rather vast range actually of different use cases. Obviously, when doing creative work, we are now using more, I would say, as supporting tools. Perhaps Midjourney, perhaps some AI video applications like Runway. Obviously, also ChatGPT for some purposes. But I would say it's more like, perhaps when building a proposal, then we're using some of these tools. In the finalized creative product, I think we have some way to go before the quality is sufficient, at least to our standards, to get a good enough result. It will definitely come, and it will definitely be at a much higher level of quality in a short time, I would suppose, but we're not quite there yet. But where I see the use of AI right now, especially in the Danish Award context, is having a significant impact, business impact. It's more, for example, areas like predictive modeling. It is in customer service, building much more advanced chatbots that can not only have a conversation with people, but also at the same time make sure that what do we have in stock, what are these customers special deals, when can we have the goods delivered, and so on. So it's a more advanced form of immediate or real-time customer service applications. It's in more sort of business functions, I would say, than necessarily in typical marketing applications. However, where we do see AI having a potentially enormous impact in marketing would be in the use of synthetic data, target audience data. You can already see this now being embedded in some of the big tech marketing platforms, like Google Marketing Platform and so on. But I would guess that it's, the use of synthetic audience data will absolutely revolutionize the whole area of basically classic marketing research, marketing surveys, because now there really is no excuse for not having a customer response at your fingertips. You can basically build these artificial personas. You can build them into, your CMS, whatever you're working in, and whenever you want to create a piece of content, you can just test that directly up against that virtual customer, virtual persona, right? And we've already seen, an award-winning case in Danish Digital Award that does exactly that for a real estate broker, where they are now able to take all their ads for homes to be sold, and they can target the content directly against some of these personas, for example, families with children or older couples, and so on, right? Which obviously saves a lot of time, because then the brokers can go actually show some homes instead of sitting around writing, homes for sale ads.
So I was actually going to ask about examples, which you just provided one, but are there other examples you would like to highlight that has used AI in a very intelligent way in the marketing you've seen?
Well, I think one of the most interesting cases I've seen in recent times is for a Danish ferry operator, Molslinjen. They've actually just been awarded Best in Breed in a very, very prestigious operations award in the US, where they won the award. Also, along the likes of, they were actually taking the award from the likes of McDonald's and American Airlines, because they're really advanced now in the way they use predictive modeling for both dynamic pricing, how to actually load the ferries so they can save fuel, thereby also being more likely to meet their climate goals and so on. And they've been on a journey for, I think, 3-4 years now, and they've just made this whole predictive engine really the center of how they operate their business. So that's a great example of something maybe that started out a little bit as a marketing or sales application, predict how many passengers and how many cars would actually arrive at any given time for departure. And if they could tell already that there's I don't know, let's just take a number, there's 80 people not arriving or 80 cars not arriving predictively, then you might as well just sell those tickets to somebody else. But that was how they started, and now it's just a crucial part of the whole way they're operating their business. So that engine is now a really a core business core application for basically all functions in the company to gain some advantages from. And I think that's where we are going to see AI move ahead. Is you might start, how you go about using AI in one corner of the business. And if you're really good, and if you're really forward-looking and tries to make something that is more future-fit, then from the beginning you know that, okay, you might start at this corner, but you have to design and think about the next step and the next step and next step, making sure that whatever you build here can have a wider application down the road, throughout the value chain. I think that's how smart businesses would go about this today. They would also try not to start out by building one big universal AI machine that can do everything. What we have learned, what is our experience and best practice now, is you build agents for specific purposes. Then you build multiple agents to take on more complex tasks. And then you learn or you train these agents to cooperate. So you basically replicate a lot of the processes and people involved that you have in different functions today, and then you build these out as separate agents. You don't try to build one big agent. I think that is one of the major learnings that we have today. Then they can adhere to those demands related to those specific tasks. But we also know the moment that you begin giving them too many tasks and making them take multiple roles, then they begin to hallucinate too much and start making rubbish, basically.
Do you think we might see more of, I would say, an A team and a B team in terms of advertisers? One thing I noticed, for example, working at Facebook and later in telco, is that you have some advertisers who really start to understand how to get the best out of Google and the meta platforms, and others who maybe are stuck in more old ways. And now we're adding AI to this mix. So do you see this A and B team forming?
I think what we are looking at right now is a complete overhaul of the whole digital ecosystem, especially within marketing. If Google's search generative experience paradigm uh, will have the impact that I believe it will, I don't know if you've seen it, but if SDE is going to be the new search paradigm, where basically you're now using Google as your virtual AI assistant, your personal AI concierge, if you will. And if that begins to, basically work as your own, even more advanced version of ChatGPT, and directly creates, for whatever request you have, basically generates a web page filled of different contents from all kinds of different sources right in front of you, basically using maybe the real estate, the other real estate of Google, generating that, content collection on the fly, which it seems to do, at least in the beta that I've seen. Then obviously, what is going to happen if it sources from all different kinds of platforms? Will they start, especially websites, corporate websites and web shops and so on, will they begin losing very much organic traffic? Of course they will. A lot of people will not want to dive deep into the content sources if they get what they need on the fly right in front of them. And I think that is going to be a threat, of course, to at least the ordinary or the classic website that has to be rethought altogether. More being a content warehouse with personalized tagging going forward than a traditional website. It's also going to perhaps be a little bit of a threat to typical social media platforms, if it means that a lot of the content that is open and accessible will also appear in the search results.
But from the advertiser point of view, do you experience some advertisers who are not willing to kind of put enough resources into getting to the cutting edge of AI and digital marketing? Or do you think everybody will just be forced to focus now on getting this right?
I think there will be, like always in these big, disruptive technologies, like, first we got the internet, then we got, social media, then we got mobile and so on. For each of these big disruptions, there's been some hesitancy. There's been an hesitant behavior, and there's a lot of late bloomers. But everybody eventually caught up, right? I think with AI, things are going to move faster because there will simply be some things that you cannot do anymore at a sufficient level in terms of time to market, speed of working, and so on, where it will probably force you to do this any which way. And you can go into the fold kicking and screaming, or you can, be more proactive about it. And what I think is most important right now is that marketeers and agencies alike, that they are really immersing themselves into this and getting their own learnings. It's learning by doing a lot. And if you don't do a lot, then you don't learn a lot.
So you mentioned agencies yourself. How do you see that ecosystem changing? I mean, just a few years ago, you would have the advertising agency, and then you would have the media agency, and that would be kind of the teamwork helping the client.
I think basically the agency model already as it is today, the agency business model already as it is today is probably kind of broken already. Now that will it'll be even more broken going forward if agencies don't redefine what is basically their core purpose. I think a lot of agencies, they came out of producing stuff for clients, typically content, and media agencies, they place that content, right? This will accelerate the whole in-housing of a lot of different capabilities to companies, so if you were an agency client 10 years ago, then there was a limited amount of what you would be able to do, produce, create in-house. Going forward, you will be able to do a lot more, not just in the creating of content or in the media planning and buying. It will also come down to you'll be able to do much more yourself, for example, by using synthetic data like virtual personas, virtual target audience, and so on, in terms of strategizing, researching, and so on. So there's a lot where you can now build solid in-house capabilities going forward. What I think agencies' core purpose need to be still is what you will experience then in the next 4 or 5 years is, because generative AI basically being built on everything that came before, you will experience also an explosion in mediocrity. So you'll have a lot of things being done the same way, looking the same way, sounding the same way. So our purpose would be basically to still go in and advise clients on how can they actually then cut through an even bigger amount of clutter and noise and differentiate or make their brands more distinct. And that will actually become, on the one hand, harder because there will be a bigger wall of noise confronting brands. On the other hand, maybe in some instances, in some categories, it'll also be easier because the quantity will significantly rise in terms of really interchangeable, boring content. But then the brands that still dare to stand out, making something that is much more handcrafted, and made by a human mind, which will maybe be more that doesn't operate in the likelihood of something specific being said or shown, but be more prone to actually seeking the outliers, basically zigging when the whole world is sagging. Then the value of zigging will increase, and it will be maybe easier for some brands to definitely stand out because there will be so much crap.
That's a very interesting point. I've been thinking about this myself because even a couple of years back, whether I was at Facebook or Urido, what I often saw was advertisers bragging at how much content they made. And then I said, well, it's not very good in itself that you make 200 posts every year, especially when the reach is 1% and the frequency during a month is 1. I mean, there will be no business impact. So I was thinking, I mean, this could accelerate it, right? Because now they're like, it's fantastic. We can make it in the.
And it will accelerate it. You can already see it now. That it is actually accelerating. Just take a professional platform or a B2B platform like LinkedIn. How many of the different posts that you see do you think now is actually AI generated, right? And I can glance it at a very large distance, and it's just crap.
And I think it will take more and more to actually get some reach. I mean, I noticed some of my own posts that are AI, that if they would get 2,000 impressions, for example, last year, they might get 1,000 impressions this year. So I think definitely it will take more to stand out from the crowd. And so I think that's an important point, that this is one of the objectives of agencies. So how do you see it when you look at this from the advertiser point of view? Like, how do they need to reorganize and reskill themselves in the age of AI in terms of marketing, especially?
Well, first of all, you have to get your fingers into the mix. You have to get yourself, a little bit dirty here in the beginning, meaning that you cannot just, hear about it and talk about it. You have to perform it yourself at some level. It's only when you have tried out the different tools for very specific purposes that you get a true understanding of what can it do for you, what are the limitations. So I think it's very, very much about trying to get it in, not just as a training practice, but trying to actually use some of these tools to solve some of the tasks that you have already, and which you are not where you haven't automated those already. Then you'll see over time what are the true benefits and what are the disadvantages. It was the same with social media, if you can remember that. In the beginning, there was a lot of people who talked about it, a lot of people who heard about it. And it took years and years, actually, for top management to really understand it until they began to, be on those platforms themselves.
Yeah, again, a very important point, right? I mean, I think the companies who are really successful with social media, you would have somebody at C-level taking it seriously, not parking it like 2 levels below.
Yeah. Right now, we're still in the phase where a lot of people at the top level, they think they can just outsource this like another discipline which requires specialists. But if you want to really be able to not own, and it's only when you understand it that you can begin to think of use cases that can actually make a critical business impact. So the more that you dive into the mix, become part of it yourself, the more likely you are to succeed. The more you think that you can just outsource this to specialists, the more you will fail.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I also see exactly the same trend that I saw from social media, that it feels safer to outsource. And then you can say, yeah, we are dealing with AI. We hired a specialist.
But definitely, if you take the creative industries, which I'm part of, and also advisory practices, which we are also part of, because we do a lot of strategic consultancy as well. There are you cannot underestimate how many different tasks are going to be hugely impacted or affected by this. Um, so whether it be market research, whether it be content creation, photography, uh, video production, uh, you name it, image generation, everything will of course be much more supported by the use of AI going forward. And as the AI tools advance, become better and better in terms of output quality, then no one with the current set of skills and the current set of jobs applying those skills will be safe. Everything will come into play. The big question is, what will the next types of jobs then look like? And I cannot tell you that right now for sure. I have some ideas, but in the 70s or 80s, nobody would have thought about, there being, people who were social media managers, content creators like we have today, influencers, all those new types of profiles. Nobody would have thought of that in the 70s, 80s, right? So obviously something will also come of this. What it's going to be, I can tell you what I don't think it's going to be. This whole idea of prompt engineers, I find absolutely ridiculous. Because in a very short time, AI will have reached generative AI will also have reached a level of sophistication, maybe becoming even AGI within 6-7 years time, where you don't have to be a prompt engineer. What you have to do is what you have always supposed to be doing, and that is giving a proper brief on whatever task you need to have fulfilled. And you can already see that today that if you just try to prompt things, you don't get a very good result. You have to be much more specific than that. That is also why the best GPTs are customized GPTs, right?
Yeah, I think you had a good point with people need to be able to be distinctive and different. There could be some jobs in that, however that may look. You mentioned AGI yourself. Um, what would AGI you look like in the marketing world? I mean, in theory, it would be an AI who would do all marketing jobs as we know them today.
And this is a paradox. As AI turns into AGI, as generative AI turns into AGI, true AGI, then what will happen is that it will actually become more human in the way it operates and thinks. And that will actually make it a better partner to bounce off things for sparring and so on, than just a more mechanical, more likelihood-based Gen AI model or LMM that you have today, because that will still give you answers that it finds will be the most likely answer to whatever request you have, right? When you get an AI, then it'll probably be able to leapfrog more, make the kind of connections that are not necessarily the most likely, but could be the most interesting. And in that sense, what AGI will be, it'll be more like having a real human partner that are just able to work faster, much faster, and able to, create stuff also faster, of course. But the paradox is that it will not necessarily be, it'll be infinitely more intelligent in the old-fashioned sense than you as a human being, but will not necessarily be more, or not necessarily, and it will also be more productive, obviously, but it will not necessarily be something that can stand on its own, because as it becomes AI, that will also still need to feed off human interaction and feedback. But of course, then you have the scenario after a while where AGIs become so human-like that they begin to be able to interact much more with each other. Will you then have a society where basically, like in Blade Runner, there are replicants and there are old-fashioned humans that also become interchangeable? That's the big question. I think it might end up there. I do believe that at some point, what we have started here with AI will be the next step in our own evolution.
Yes, I mean it's pretty crazy when you play with the numbers. I made an experiment yesterday with Lars Tvede because we talked about AI in 2050, and then he asked me try to estimate how much more powerful AI would be in 2050 than today, assuming that the doubling rate stays the same as the last 5 years. So and then he texted me back and said, "How much?" And then I said, "Well, I can't tell you the number because it's four, and then it's 26 zeros." And just started to try and grasp what that number means, and it's like it's much more than one time around the Earth in centimeters, for example.
But I think what people tend to forget is if you take the complexity of the human brain and the number of operations that it actually performs at, at a simultaneous rate, in some ways, our own neural network as human beings are insanely advanced, also compared with Gen AI, generative AI today. So in some ways, what AI will be able to do is basically just coming up to our own level as human beings today. But what it'll be able to do is, of course, it will outscale what we're able to do as individuals, because an AGI is basically a collective wisdom. And that means it can produce anything faster, it can generate anything faster, it can make more connections faster. And that is maybe the beginning to our end. Perhaps it is. A lot of people working in data science think actually believes it is, right. I think it's like 10% of all people working professionally with AI today believes that this is the beginning of the end of, Homo sapiens, right? If it ever comes to that, I don't know. At the current rate, it could look like that. I think at least for the next 10 years or so, like Samuel Altman is also saying, he doesn't know what happens after 2040. But as he says, at least, up until then, we can, create some amazing concepts and businesses using AI. What happens after that, if everything goes Skynet, I'm not able to tell.
But what do you, when you talk to your clients, what do you mostly feel? I guess also suppliers. I guess they might feel even more in danger, right? The suppliers with advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not a company, a photographer, today, still photographer, I would feel immensely threatened. There are already AI platforms out there that can generate a website on the fly. And also a lot of different coding. I mean, basically, if AI absorbs, if generative AI absorbs, if the large language models absorb just what is, just imagine if it could absorb everything that is on GitHub today. Why would you need to write a single line of code yourself if you can just have the AI do it, understanding human language, then turn it into machine language?
At least you can say today, when it comes to, for example, creative writing, I think the best results come when you use AI for some research and maybe to kind of prove some flow, but not let AI do the whole thing, right? And I guess us humans, we have maybe a few more years, we don't know how many, but where we can still improve on it.
But we have something that generative or the LLMs of today absolutely doesn't have. We have a sense of, we can actually assess whether something sounds good, looks good, reads good. We have a sense of what good actually looks like. There's no qualitative parameter for that in the way algorithms work. They're based, by the end of the day, they're still based on probabilities. It's still the good old Bayes theorem as a sophisticated state. And it can make some statistics about what, if you have fed it those data, it can make some statistics about, what have worked in the past. And perhaps these synthetic representatives of your target audience, what are they most likely to respond to, believe in, so on. But in reality, they don't have that final intuition of, but does this sound good? They cannot possibly have an idea of that because that notion is not built into the algorithm.
I was thinking, what type of advice would you be giving to people entering into the marketing industry today? Perhaps at advertising level at a medium-sized company, or perhaps into an agency?
Anybody to basically have a career in either as a traditional agency person or a traditional marketeer, because I think that the era of basically traditional marketing and traditional advertising is soon going to be a thing of the past. This is going to evolve into something new. The whole way we build brands and the whole idea of what brands actually represent is going to change quite dramatically also in the coming years, because the whole ecosystem is going to be thrown around and recalibrate, maybe more than just recalibrate. I think it's going to change very much altogether. So I think if you're a person who believes that creativity can make a difference in the world, then by all means pursue a creative profession, but really be aware of where it is, where in which areas, in which skills you can, make your mark, and not trying in any way to compete with what AI can already do better or will very soon become able to do much better. You have to carve out your own niche, and you have to be very aware of what that niche is. And I think a lot of people are confused about that.
Do you think there's any future for people in the industry rejecting AI, saying, I am totally against it, I'll not use the tools, I'll go old fashioned?
Sure, there'll be a few, and they will also prosper, but there will be only a handful. I have haute couture already in the fashion industry today. It's not like there's a bunch of customers for haute couture, but it's being used as a means of profiling a fashion brand, so you can sell all the stuff that is basically just on a hanger in whatever store you buy clothes, right? So there will always be a place for handcraft and for haute couture and for luxury, right? Also with AI, but it will not make up the mainstream market or any kind of volume business.
I think that's a good point. So I guess either embrace AI, really get your hands dirty, try to be different and creative, or if you're going to reject it, make sure to be completely unique. Would that be a decent way to sum it up?
Then there's also a quality in being the Stone Age guy in a modern world, right? Because then you also stand out. But there cannot be too many of those.
That's great. I think that's a good note to end this on. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Samurai Podcast, and remember to like and subscribe.